Imagine this. A silent world hanging above us, pale and familiar yet never truly known. Traveller, you did not arrive here by chance. Something ancient has been calling your attention upward, night after night across forgotten centuries. In 1969, when humans struck the moon on purpose, it did not answer like stone. It rang. For hours. As if something hollow, something listening, echoed beneath the dust. What are the odds that a body perfectly sized to eclipse our sun would also behave unlike any natural world we know? A shadow moves through scientific data, a vibration that refuses to fade, a structure hidden behind gravity and time. What if the moon is not watching us from afar, but has been here for billions of years quietly waiting? Let's drift a little deeper. A pale disk rises above the horizon, unchanged, familiar ancient casting a quiet silver over oceans, cities, forests, and the patient instruments of sleepless observatories. The moon does not hurry. It never has. Its light drifts slowly, touching everything without choosing, reminding us that time can move without urgency. Traveller, before sleep finds you, allow yourself to look upward once more. Not to search for answers, but to notice how long this presence has been there. You're not here by accident. Across countless nights, across maps smudged with dust and fingerprints, across data logs filled in by tired hands, something has been quietly leading you to this moment. I remember nights spent alone with seismic charts glowing faintly on a dark screen. Outside the window, the moon hovered distant and calm, while inside lines of data traced to vibrations that should not have lasted. On Earth, energy fades, stone absorbs, molten layers soften the shock. But the moon did not forget the impact. It remembered it. For hours. Gravity in moments like this feels less like force and more like memory. Radiation becomes a whisper passing through ancient walls. Dust becomes chronology layered gently, one forgotten era settling atop another. The moon wears its history openly because nothing there erases it. In November of 1969, when human hands deliberately struck the lunar surface, the response was not violent. It was resonant. A ringing, slow and persistent echoing through an interior we had never touched before. The signal circled and returned again and again, as if the moon were listening to itself think. Silence, it turns out, is not emptiness. Silence is the universe pausing between thoughts. What are the odds that the object stabilizing Earth's tilt, shaping our tides and guiding our calendars, would also behave unlike any natural world we understand? What if coincidence is simply a word we use when patterns make us uncomfortable? Long before instruments and equations, humans watched the moon with bare eyes and steady patience. They aligned stones to its rise. They measured seasons by its phases. They whispered stories about its watchfulness not as superstition, but as memory carried forward when language was still young. The moon became time's companion, marking repetition, return and restraint. Light leaves the sun, travels across emptiness, strikes the moon, and returns to us altered. Older, delayed. Light in this way carries testimony. It tells us that reflection is not passive. It is participation. Something receives, something responds. The moon's face never turns away from us. Tidal locking, they call it. A slow dance that somehow reached perfect balance. One side shown, one side hidden, like a book left open to the same page for millions of generations, inviting us to wonder why. There is comfort in not knowing. I have learned that from long nights when instruments hum softly and nothing dramatic happens. From moments when all you can do is sit with the data and accept that some truths reveal themselves only as questions. Erosion is time thinking. On Earth it erases. On the moon it preserves. Craters remain sharp memories intact. Every impact is recorded, every event archived. Nothing is truly lost there. That alone should make us pause. If something ancient wanted to endure, it would choose a place without weather, without oceans, without forgetting. It would choose silence. You are not lost in space. Your bones were forged in stars. Your curiosity is older than a language. Tonight that curiosity is being gently invited to rest beside mystery instead of chasing certainty. Somewhere beyond our reach, something ancient still moves, or perhaps simply waits. Waiting does not require effort when time is abundant. In the end, traveller, it is all right to not understand. Some mysteries are not puzzles to be solved, but presences to be acknowledged. The moon does not demand belief, it offers proximity. Tonight the universe whispers again. Not loudly, not urgently, just enough to be heard if you are willing to listen. I think of forgotten epochs slipping beneath that steady light. Civilizations that counted the moon before they counted years. Hands that traced its curve into claystone and myth. Each culture added a layer of meaning not because the moon asked for it, but because humans sensed something steady when everything else failed. Floods came, fires followed, ice advanced and retreated. Still, the moon remained. Reset after reset, the sky kept its familiar anchor. After each collapse, survivors looked up and saw the same shape, watching over them unchanged, patient, impartial. That kind of consistency leaves an imprint on the mind. It teaches restraint. It teaches rhythm. It teaches waiting. Instruments today are more precise, but the feeling is the same. A quiet pressure in the chest when numbers do not behave as expected. A pause when equations balance too perfectly. The sense that explanation may exist, but not in the language we are currently using. Maps collect dust because truth is rarely clean. Notes smudge. Coffee rings stain margins. The work continues anyway, not to conquer mystery, but to sit with it respectfully. There is peace in admitting limits. There is rest in acknowledging scale. Somewhere beneath the surface of the moon, structures of meaning exist, whether physical or conceptual, it hardly matters. What matters is the invitation to humility, to recognize that humanity is young. Our science, our certainty, provisional. The moon has watched oceans form and dry. It has seen continents collide and drift apart. It has observed life emerge, struggle, adapt, and ask questions about itself. If observation leaves an imprint, then the moon carries more stories than we can imagine. Tonight, as your breathing slows, allow those stories to remain unfinished. Let questions float without answers. Let silence stretch without fear. You do not need resolution to rest. Some mysteries wait. Others watch. And some simply keep time. It is all right to not understand. Sleep, traveller. The cosmos will watch. Evidence rarely arrives as a revelation. It gathers slowly like dust settling on instruments left running through the night. Lunar science did not begin with certainty, only with measurements that hesitated, signals that lingered, and numbers that refused to behave. Scientists recorded them without drama, trusting that time, repetition, and patience would eventually reveal what meaning alone could not. When Apollo missions ended, their instruments remained quietly listening long after human footsteps vanished. Deliberate impacts and accidental collisions produced vibrations that should have faded quickly, yet instead they echoed for hours. Waves crossed the lunar interior, reflected, returned, and refused silence. Such behavior suggested boundaries, unlike Earth interiors, that preserved energy rather than dissolving it. Density calculations added weight to the unease. The moon is too light for its size, missing the massive iron core expected from planetary formation. Its gravity shapes oceans and steadies Earth's axis, yet its interior appears incomplete. Arithmetic, not imagination, exposes this tension, and arithmetic does not soften with opinion. Traveller evidence does not argue. It waits. Charts remain unchanged as interpretations rise and fall around them. Lunar samples returned from Apollo carried questions sealed in stone. Rocks older than Earth itself, materials concentrated where chance rarely concentrates, and isotopes suggesting processing rather than accident, rested quietly in storage indifferent to belief. Orbital mechanics introduce another whisper of restraint. The moon travels in a nearly perfect circle locked into orientation, revealing only one face to Earth. Captured satellites wobble and wander, but this companion behaves as if placed then left to perform its task indefinitely. Rarity acknowledged once becomes improbability when repeated endlessly. Beneath the surface, radar mapping reveals vast emptiness. Cavities stretch for kilometers connected by tunnels that defy easy geological explanation. Lava tubes are the official language, yet their scale feels restrained, intentional, preserved. On a world without erosion, voids remain exactly as they were formed or exactly as they were made. Long nights with these images teach restraint. Screens glow softly while notes collect dust. Coffee cools beside instruments, humming patiently. In such moments, curiosity matures into humility. One stops demanding answers and begins accepting proximity to something larger, older, and unbothered by our need for clarity. Ancient cultures sensed difference long before equations confirmed it. They organized time by lunar cycles, aligned stone with moonrise, and treated phases as instruction rather than ornament. This was coordination, not worship alone. Human life bent subtly toward a rhythm that felt external, stable, and indifferent to collapse. Myth, when repeated globally, becomes a form of data. Separate civilizations describe the moon as watcher-recorder, silent judge, not creator, not destroyer, but observer. Memory survives when explanation fails. Myth is evidence that outlived its original language. Modern instruments echo those ancient intuitions. Magnetic anomalies trace straight lines across planes where randomness should reign. Local fields spike abruptly, forming geometry without cause. Nature can surprise, but it rarely shows restraint. Restraint implies decision. Some mysteries are not puzzles but presences. Evidence does not demand belief. It invites patience. The moon has waited billions of years without explanation or defense. It does not hurry interpretation. It simply remains consistent, measurable, and quietly unresolved. In forgotten epochs, resets erased memory while the sky kept its anchor. Floods rose, fires spread, ice advanced, and still the moon remained. Survivors looked upward and saw the same shape watching unchanged. Consistency teaches trust when history fails. Scientific work continues in that quiet tension. Notes smudge margins stain, and explanations remain provisional. Peace arrives not from solving everything, but from accepting scale. Humanity is young, our certainty younger still. If observation leaves an imprint, then the moon carries more stories than stone can hold. It has seen continents drift oceans, form life struggle and intelligence awaken. Watching does not require intervention. Sometimes it only requires time. Tonight, traveller, allow questions to remain unfinished. Let data rest without verdict. You do not need resolution to sleep. Some mysteries wait, others watch. Tonight the universe whispers again, and patience becomes understanding enough. Long before telescopes, the moon regulated breath and blood. Tides followed its pull, bodies echoed its cycle, and nights learned restraint. Biology remembers patterns even when minds forget them. Evidence here becomes intimate, written quietly into flesh. It is difficult to dismiss what lives beneath awareness long after theories change and arguments fade into silence. Patterns repeat across species and centuries. Cycles return regardless of belief, indifferent to denial. Science names correlations cautiously, yet correlations persist. The moon synchronizes more than tides. It organizes anticipation, expectation, and rest, teaching systems when to pause. Such influence does not announce itself. It simply remains consistent over time and repetition without explanation offered. Evidence accumulates best in quiet. Loud conclusions fracture trust. The moon teaches slow study, long patience, and acceptance of ambiguity. Data becomes companion rather than weapon. In that companionship, understanding deepens without force. This approach mirrors cosmic timescales where urgency dissolves naturally, and waiting becomes effortless for those who listen without expectation or fear present. Across observatories, nights repeat the same ritual. Screens glow, stars drift, and the moon holds position. Researchers grow older while it does not. This contrast teaches humility better than any lecture or equation. Knowledge matures through such contrast, slowly reshaping ambition into patience and restraint rather than conquest or certainty at all costs considered fully. In the end, traveller evidence offers no final declaration. It offers companionship through uncertainty. The moon remains above us unchanged by interpretation, untroubled by doubt. It watches oceans breathe, civilizations rise and fall, and questions return in new languages. Tonight you do not need answers, you only need permission to rest beside mystery. Some mysteries wait, others watch. Silence is the universe thinking. It is all right to not understand. Sleep, traveller. The cosmos will keep watch patient and vast as it always has while stars drift slowly beyond memory and time, holding every unanswered question safely within its endless quiet, until humanity is ready to listen again without fear or haste tonight. An anomaly is not a rupture in reality, but a quiet hesitation within it, a moment where expectation pauses and certainty loosens its grip. In the long study of the moon, anomalies never arrived as declarations. They surfaced as subtle irregularities, small inconsistencies that refused to resolve, lingering at the edges of explanation like echoes that would not fade. Science noticed them, documented them, and often set them aside not because they were meaningless, but because they demanded a patience that human urgency rarely grants. The first anomaly was sound, or rather persistence of it. When the moon was struck deliberately and accidentally, the vibrations did not behave as stone should. Energy did not scatter and disappear. Instead, it circled, reflected, returned, and continued, as if the interior were remembering rather than absorbing. The phrase rang like a bell endured because it captured something essential. Bells resonate not because they are struck, but because they contain space. Resonance implies structure boundaries, and emptiness held deliberately in place. Traveller anomalies do not accuse us of ignorance. They reveal the limits of our metaphors. When seismic waves refused to decay, scientists did not announce discovery. They archived the data and waited. Years later, similar impacts produced the same prolonged reverberation. Patterns do not require belief. They only require time, and time on the moon moves without erosion, without weather, without forgetting. Density anomalies followed quietly. The moon's mass does not reconcile easily with its size or its gravitational influence. It lacks the iron core expected of a body born through violent planetary collision. Models bend to accommodate this absence. Assumptions stretch, variables multiply, and simulations adjust. Each explanation functions locally, yet the global discomfort remains. Something is missing, or something is arranged differently than expected. Both possibilities unsettle the language of formation we rely upon. Magnetic irregularities deepen the silence. The moon possesses no global magnetic field, yet certain regions pulse with localized intensity. These fields align in straight lines, trace geometric patterns, and form grids across ancient planes. Natural explanations exist, and each one works briefly, but geometry persists. Nature improvises freely. Geometry suggests restraint. Restraint suggests intention, or at least modification. An anomaly does not declare design, but it erodes dismissal. I remember tracing those magnetic lines late at night, finger hovering above the screen, careful not to touch what felt already fragile. In such moments, skepticism transforms into attentiveness. The question shifts from what something is to why it continues. Why does this anomaly endure through every revision, every recalculation, every attempt to smooth it into familiarity? Subsurface voids offer another quiet disturbance. Radar imaging reveals hollow spaces vast enough to contain cities stretching beneath a surface untouched for billions of years. Lava tubes provide an explanation of form, but not of scale or preservation. On Earth, gravity collapses excess. On the Moon, absence remains stable. Emptiness becomes architecture, whether accidental or intentional, and the distinction begins to feel less important than the persistence. Anomalies also exist in time. Lunar rocks older than Earth challenge chronology itself. Explanations accumulate, capture, transfer contamination. Each explanation survives scrutiny alone. Together they feel crowded like furniture arranged carefully to block a doorway. Chronology becomes flexible, then strained. Time, like gravity, begins to feel less absolute. Ancient observers lacked instruments, yet sensed difference intuitively. They describe the moon as keeper, measurer, regulator. Not creator, not destroyer, but watcher. This restraint mirrors modern observation. The moon influences without intervention. It stabilizes without touch. Anomaly becomes consistency viewed from a different altitude. Biology responds quietly to this presence. Sleep cycles, fertility patterns, behavioral rhythms fluctuate subtly with lunar phases. Science debates magnitude, but correlation persists. Bodies synchronize unconsciously to something overhead, ancient and predictable. Influence does not announce itself. It integrates, slowly becoming background rather than command. Some anomalies reveal themselves only when expectations are released. Total solar eclipses require precision so exact it borders on choreography. Size, distance, and alignment converge improbably. Totality should be rare. Instead, it defines our sky. The moon fits the sun perfectly again and again across generations. Randomness allows coincidence. Repetition invites contemplation. Anomalies teach humility. They resist conquest. Each attempt to erase them with explanation leaves residue behind. Science continues as it should, refining models, gathering data, improving instruments. Yet something remains unresolved not as failure, but as boundary. A reminder that knowledge has edges and edges are not flaws. In long nights of analysis, one learns to sit with that boundary. Instruments hum softly. Screens glow dimly. Outside, the moon holds its position unchanged by attention, untroubled by doubt. Anomaly becomes companion rather than threat, something to walk beside, not to overpower. Civilizations before us lived beneath that same light. Floods erased cities, ice buried memory, fire reset history. Still, the moon remained. Reset after reset passed beneath it like breath. Consistency through catastrophe leaves an imprint deeper than monument or myth. Something that survives every collapse begins to feel intentional, even if intention remains undefined. Anomaly then may not signal error. It may signal perspective. A reminder that not all structures exist to be understood immediately. Some exist to endure, others to observe, others simply to remain while younger intelligences circle them with questions they are not yet equipped to resolve. Tonight, the universe whispers again through anomaly, not loudly, not urgently, just enough to remind us that certainty is young and patience is ancient. You're not required to resolve what you encounter here. You're invited to notice it, to sit beside it, without fear. In the end, traveller, it is all right to not understand. Anomalies are not failures of knowledge. They are markers of scale. They show us where our models end and listening begins. Some mysteries wait, others watch, and some remain above us, silent and steady, while we learn slowly how to look without demanding answers. Let your breathing slow. Let questions soften. The moon does not need belief. It has time. Sleep approaches not as escape, but as alignment. Silence is the universe thinking. And tonight, beneath that quiet witness, you may rest, knowing that uncertainty is not absence but space. Silence is often mistaken for emptiness, but in the cosmos, silence is density. It is weight without sound, presence without movement, information without announcement. The moon teaches this kind of silence better than any object humanity has ever studied. It does not transmit messages. It does not reveal intention. It does not correct our assumptions. It simply remains suspended above us, absorbing centuries of attention without responding in kind. In laboratories and observatories, silence is where unease begins. When instruments register nothing unusual, scientists relax. When instruments register something that refuses explanation, conversation stops. Not because there is nothing to say, but because language has not yet caught up. The moon exists permanently in that gap, a place where measurement continues but meaning stalls. Its silence is not passive, it is resistant. Traveller, consider how much noise surrounds human knowledge. We publish, debate, revise, announce. We explain ourselves constantly as if explanation itself were proof of understanding. The moon offers no such reassurance. It does not defend its anomalies. It does not clarify its history. It allows theories to rise, fall, and repeat untouched by outcome. That kind of silence feels deliberate, even if we hesitate to use that word. When Apollo astronauts left seismic instruments behind, they expected data. What they did not expect was how long the moon would continue speaking after impact. And yet after those hours of ringing, it returned to silence completely. No follow-up signal, no decay pattern that resolved cleanly. Just quiet. Silence resumed, as if nothing had happened, as if the disturbance had been absorbed into memory rather than processed. Silence preserves. On Earth sound fades because layers move, melt, shift, and erase. On the Moon, nothing moves enough to forget. Dust settles, but does not erase. Craters remain open. Shadows remain fixed. Silence becomes archival. Every event is held indefinitely, not replayed, not announced, simply stored. This is not how living worlds behave. This is how vaults behave. Ancient civilizations recognized this difference intuitively. They described the Moon not as speaker, but as listener, a witness to cycles rather than a participant in them. Deities associated with the Moon were rarely loud or chaotic. They were judges, record keepers, keepers of time. Silence in myth was authority. To observe without comment implied power greater than action. Modern science inherited that discomfort. We are trained to distrust silence, to fill it with hypotheses. Yet some silences resist filling. The Moon's lack of atmosphere, its absence of erosion, its refusal to recycle surface features all contribute to a sense that it is not participating in planetary processes so much as standing outside them. Silence becomes separation. There is a particular stillness felt during long nights at observatories. Screens glow faintly. Data scrolls slowly. Outside, the Moon hangs exactly where expected. No drift, no shimmer, just position. In those moments, one feels watched not by eyes, but by consistency. Something that does not change begins to feel aware, even if awareness remains undefined. Silence also shapes human behavior. The Moon governs tides without announcement. It synchronizes biological rhythms without instruction. Bodies respond quietly, unconsciously. Influence does not require communication. It requires proximity and time. Silence allows systems to adapt without resistance. Loud control provokes rebellion. Quiet presence reshapes behavior gradually and visibly. Resets in human history occurred beneath that same silence. Flood myths, fire myths, Ice Ages collapses recorded in fragmented memory. Each reset erased language, architecture, certainty. After each one, survivors looked up and saw the same Moon, unchanged, indifferent present. That continuity offered orientation when everything else failed. Silence became reassurance. From that perspective, silence is not absence of care, it is neutrality. The Moon does not intervene because intervention would disrupt observation. To remain silent is to allow systems to reveal themselves fully. This is how scientists observe experiments. This is how archives function. This is how guardians behave when their role is preservation, not participation. Some researchers quietly admit discomfort with how well the Moon fits certain theoretical roles, not because conclusions are proven, but because the silence aligns too well with function. An observation platform would be silent. A long-term archive would be silent. A structure designed to endure resets would be silent. Noise attracts attention. Silence survives. Silence also protects mystery. Once something is named definitively, curiosity collapses. The Moon has resisted naming for millennia. Every culture named it differently. Every era explained it differently. None of those explanations lasted. Silence ensures renewal of inquiry. It keeps the question alive. In personal moments, silence teaches acceptance. Sitting with unanswered data changes how one sleeps, how one thinks. The need for closure softens. The awareness of scale grows. Humanity becomes smaller, not in worth, but in duration. The Moon has watched countless intelligences rise elsewhere in the universe, perhaps. Or perhaps it has watched only us. Either way, its silence suggests patience beyond our emotional range. Tonight, the universe whispers again by not speaking. Silence becomes message. Not instruction, not warning, but presence. A reminder that understanding is not the same as control. That observation does not require explanation, that something can matter deeply without ever announcing why. In the end, traveller silence is not something to fear. It is something to rest within. The moon does not demand interpretation. It allows it. And when interpretations fail, silence remains stable and untroubled. Some mysteries are loud because they are fragile. Others are silent because they are complete. Let your breathing slow to match that quiet rhythm. Let thoughts drift without needing resolution. You're not meant to solve everything you encounter here. You're meant to witness briefly before sleep carries you elsewhere. Silence is the universe thinking, and tonight beneath that ancient witness you are allowed to stop thinking too. There are ages that leave behind monuments and ages that leave behind nothing but alignment. The forgotten epochs belong to the latter. They are not remembered through stone or language, but through patterns that survived catastrophe intact. The moon, unmoving and unchanged, becomes the quiet marker of those lost ages, a constant, against which erasure can be measured. When history resets, memory dissolves, but alignment remains. Long before recorded time, before the oldest calendars etched lines into clay earth, moved through cycles of collapse and renewal. Ice advanced, then withdrew. Seas rose, then receded. Species vanished, then returned in altered forms. Each reset erased stories, but preserved conditions. The moon remained overhead through all of it, watching continents shift like slow thoughts, and oceans breathe in gravitational rhythm. It became the one object that never needed remembering because it never left. Traveller-forgotten epochs are difficult to imagine because they require us to accept that intelligence may have existed before us, risen to complexity, and then disappeared without inheritance. Not every civilization leaves ruins. Some leave only consequences. Some leave only influence woven into biology, orbit, and timing. The absence of evidence is not proof of absence when time itself is the eraser. The moon's surface holds scars from impacts older than Earth's oldest surviving rocks. It remembers collisions that predate our planet's crust. This alone suggests a perspective beyond human chronology. If intelligence once emerged during those epochs, it would have seen Earth as unstable, volatile resetting repeatedly. To endure such conditions, preservation would require distance, elevation, and patience. It would require something that could wait. Forgotten epochs do not announce themselves. They hide in improbable survivals, perfect orbital resonance, persistent stabilization of axial tilt, a companion body precisely positioned to reduce chaos during climatic extremes. These are not proofs, but they are conditions, and conditions shape outcomes quietly without ceremony. Ancient myths speak of ages before the present one, worlds destroyed by flood or fire, then rebuilt. These stories appear globally separated by oceans and languages, yet sharing structure. Modern minds call them allegory, yet allegory often forms when memory outlives explanation. When something happened, but the framework to describe it was lost, narrative steps in to preserve the outline. The moon appears repeatedly in these stories as witness judge, or keeper of time, not actor, not destroyer, witness. Forgotten epochs require witnesses to exist at all. Without something to observe continuity, reset becomes indistinguishable from origin. The moon provides that continuity. It does not interfere, it records by remaining. Geology hints at abrupt transitions. Ice core data reveals sudden climate shifts. Sediment layers show breaks that suggest rapid change, not gradual evolution. Biology reflects bottlenecks where diversity collapsed and rebuilt. These signatures align with stories of reset even if interpretation remains cautious. Science acknowledges the events while hesitating to explore their implications fully. I have sat with those datasets late at night watching graphs jump where they should slope. Those jumps feel like memories breaking through stone, not explanations, but reminders that Earth has not always been gentle with its inhabitants. Survival favours those who can step aside when the cycle turns. Forgotten epochs belong to those who failed to do so or chose not to. If an ancient intelligence sought continuity rather than dominance, it would avoid Earth's surface. It would choose orbit. It would choose silence. It would choose something that could outlast oceans, atmospheres, and species. The moon fits this requirement without modification, or perhaps it fits because it was modified long ago. Forgotten epochs challenge human centrality. They suggest that our age is not unique, only current. that intelligence may rise repeatedly, learn similar lessons and disappear again. The moon unchanged would be the only constant presence across these cycles. To us it feels ancient. To forgotten civilizations it may have felt familiar. Somewhere in those epochs knowledge may have been preserved not in books, but in position. Not in language, but in alignment. Gravity as memory, orbit as archive, silence as strategy. These are not metaphors chosen for beauty, but for durability. Words erode, stone collapses, orbits persist. Tonight as you listen, imagine those forgotten ages passing quietly beneath lunar light. Cities rising, failing, sinking beneath ice or water. Names spoken once then never again. Technologies blooming briefly then extinguished. Above it all, the moon remains unchanged, indifferent, patient. If memory exists anywhere beyond biology, it exists in such patience. In the end, traveller-forgotten epochs are not tragedies. They are reminders. They tell us that survival is not guaranteed, that continuity is rare, and that observation may matter more than action in the longest view. The moon does not mourn what is lost. It records by remaining. Some mysteries wait, others watch. Forgotten epochs do both. And as sleep approaches, you are allowed to drift alongside them, knowing that even if everything else fades, something above will remain keeping time without judgment. It is all right to not remember what was forgotten. Silence holds it now. Resets are not explosions. They are quiet rearrangements of priority moments when complexity gives way to simplicity, when systems shed excess and return to bare function. In the history of Earth, resets arrive without warning and leave without explanation. They do not ask permission. They do not negotiate. They simply occur and life adapts or disappears. Beneath every reset, the moon remains unchanged, an unmoving reference point against which collapse becomes measurable. The idea of reset unsettles us because it challenges progress. We prefer narratives that rise steadily upward from primitive to advanced, from ignorance to mastery. Yet geology tells a different story. Ice cores reveal abrupt climate shifts. Sediment layers show sudden interruptions. Species vanish almost entirely, then reappear altered, simplified, reduced to essentials. Reset is not failure. It is recalibration imposed by forces larger than intention. Traveller, imagine living through such a moment. Oceans swelling without warning, skies darkening for years, crops failing, knowledge becoming useless overnight. In such conditions, preservation does not favour cities or monuments. It favours distance, redundancy, and patience. Anything tied too tightly to Earth's surface becomes vulnerable. Anything bound to atmosphere, climate, or ecology risks erasure. The moon offers none of those vulnerabilities. It has no weather to betray it, no oceans to rise, no biosphere to collapse. It exists outside Earth's cycles while remaining intimately connected to them. Gravity links them gently, constantly, without dependence. If continuity were the goal, the moon would be an ideal refuge, not for bodies perhaps, but for memory itself. Resets erase language first. Writing burns. Records decay. Oral tradition fragments. What survives is pattern, rhythm, alignment. The moon preserves those effortlessly. Its orbit stabilizes Earth's axial tilt, preventing chaotic swings that would amplify catastrophe. Its tides mix. Oceans distribute nutrients, moderate extremes. Even during collapse, it continues performing these functions without intervention or adjustment. Some researchers quietly acknowledge how improbable this stabilizing relationship appears. Remove the moon, and Earth's climate becomes volatile. Seasons wander, extremes intensify. Life struggles to maintain complexity. Add the moon, and chaos narrows into habitable range. Reset still occurs, but recovery becomes possible. This relationship feels less accidental when viewed across multiple extinction events. Ancient stories describe resets vividly. Floods that cover the world. Fires that fall from the sky. Ages ending abruptly, then beginning again with survivors who remember fragments but not systems. These narratives appear globally separated by oceans, yet sharing structure. Modern interpretation calls them myth. But myth often encodes memory when detail is lost. It preserves the shape of events when substance erodes. The moon appears repeatedly in these stories as marker of cycles, not cause but witness. It signals endings and beginnings through eclipses, phases, alignments. Cultures learned to read these signs not because they controlled them, but because ignoring them proved costly. Reset teaches attentiveness. Survival favours those who watch rather than those who dominate. In my own work, resets appear not as dramatic graphs, but as discontinuities, lines that jump where they should slope, data that refuses smoothness. In those moments, one learns restraint. Instead of forcing explanation, you mark the boundary and step back. Reset is not something to be solved. It is something to be acknowledged. If an ancient intelligence existed before our current age, it would have learned this lesson early. Progress is fragile. Complexity invites collapse. Preservation requires humility. It requires stepping aside when cycles turn. The moon, whether natural or modified, embodies this strategy. It does not intervene. It does not prevent reset. It survives it. Some speculate that resets are deliberate control to prevent unchecked expansion or self-destruction. Others see them as natural consequences of planetary systems adjusting to internal stress. Both perspectives may be incomplete. Reset may be neither punishment nor accident, but inevitability built into complex systems. The moon's role then would be neither judge nor weapon, but anchor. During resets, silence dominates. Communication fails. Signals vanish. Noise recedes. What remains is observation. The moon's silence during catastrophe would be absolute. No message, no warning, just presence. This is not cruelty, it is consistency. Systems designed to endure do not react emotionally to change, they remain functional. Tonight consider how many resets may have occurred without record. How many civilizations rose to intelligence then vanished without leaving trace. How many times Earth began again, guided subtly by an object that never left. Reset becomes less terrifying when viewed as rhythm rather than ending. Death, followed by rearrangement. Loss, followed by opportunity. Resets teach scale. They remind us that individual lives matter deeply within their moment, but little within geological time. This realization can feel heavy, yet it also brings peace. Pressure dissolves when one understands that survival does not require permanence. It requires adaptation. The moon does not promise safety. It offers continuity. It ensures that after collapse conditions remain within bounds that allow rebuilding. That alone is extraordinary. Whether by chance or design, this relationship persists across billions of years. Reset after reset, the moon remains in position, maintaining balance without announcement. As sleep approaches, allow the idea of reset to soften, not as threat, but as cycle. Breath in, breath out, expansion and contraction, life and pause. The universe operates this way at every scale. Stars burn out and seed new stars. Galaxies collide and reorganize. Nothing is final. In the end, Traveller Reset is not erasure. It is clearing. It removes what cannot endure and leaves space for what can. The moon watches without judgment, holding position through every rearrangement. Some mysteries wait, others watch. And through every reset, something above remains, keeping time patiently until the next beginning arrives. Rest now. The cosmos has survived far worse than forgetting, and it will continue quietly whether we are watching or not. Every system leaves an echo. Not a sound, but a residue, a trace that persists long after the original motion has ended. In physics, echoes reveal structure. In history, they reveal survival. The moon is filled with echoes not because it speaks, but because it remembers. Its surface, its orbit, its silence all carry reverberations of events that no longer announce themselves directly. What remains is pattern repetition, and the feeling that something once moved here with purpose. An echo is never the original event. It is weaker, delayed, transformed by the medium it passes through, yet it proves that something happened. When the moon rang after impact, the sound itself was less important than what it implied. Reverberation meant interior, duration meant structure. The echo was not the message, it was the confirmation that the message existed at all. Traveller echoes are how the universe communicates across time without intention. Light from dead stars still reaches us. Gravitational waves ripple long after collisions end. Civilizations vanish, yet their influence lingers in language biology in orbit. The moon functions as an echo chamber on a planetary scale. It does not generate new signals, it preserves old ones. Geological echoes remain frozen in lunar dust. Impacts billions of years old remain sharp, unsoftened by erosion. Each crater is a punctuation mark in time recording not just collision, but sequence. When impacts cluster, they tell a story. When they thin, they tell another. Earth's surface forgets these stories quickly. The moon does not. It holds them intact like a ledger that was never closed. Biological echoes exist as well. Life on Earth responds subtly to lunar rhythm. Cycles of sleep, fertility, behavior, and migration align imperfectly yet persistently with phases above. Science debates mechanisms, but correlation remains. An echo does not need explanation to exist. It only needs continuity. The moon provides that continuity effortlessly. Ancient cultures listened to these echoes without instruments. They felt repetition before they understood mechanics. Calendars emerged from observation, not theory. Ritual followed rhythm because rhythm proved reliable when everything else changed. The moon's echo became embedded in culture not as belief, but as habit. Habit outlasts explanation. I have noticed how echoes shape research itself. Certain questions return across generations asked differently each time. Is the moon natural or placed? Why is its orbit so precise? Why does it behave differently from similar bodies? Each era proposes answers using available tools. Each answer fades. The question remains. That persistence is an echo of unresolved structure. Echoes also appear in architecture of myth. Stories of watchers, keepers, silent observers repeat globally. These narratives differ in detail but not in role. Something above watches. Something records. Something waits. These are not claims of fact. They are echoes of perception carried forward when certainty dissolved. The moon's echo is strongest during eclipses. When sun and moon align perfectly, day becomes night briefly and the world pauses. Animals grow quiet. Humans look upward. This response is instinctive, not learned. Alignment triggers attention. Attention reveals echo. For a moment, the sky reminds us that position matters more than size and timing matters more than force. Instruments echo this as well. Seismic waves reflect. Radar signals return altered. Magnetic fields pulse where none should exist. Each measurement sends out inquiry and receives response that does not fully match expectation. The mismatch is the echo. It tells us the medium is different than assumed. Echoes fade slowly. They diminish, but they do not vanish immediately. Civilizations that collapsed left faint impressions in genetics and tools repurposed by successors in ruins buried beneath sediment. If something far older than humanity existed, its echo would be faint indeed. It would not appear as artifact or machine, but as arrangement, orbit, stability, silence. The moon's continued presence across resets amplifies its echo. After every collapse, survivors recalibrated by looking upward. The same shape, the same cycles, the same light. Orientation returned through repetition. Echo became guide. Not instruction, but reassurance that some things remain constant even when everything else fails. There is humility in studying echoes. One learns not to demand clarity. Echoes do not resolve into full sound again. They remain partial, fragmented, suggestive. They invite listening rather than decoding. In this way, the moon teaches scientific patience as effectively as it teaches cultural rhythm. Late at night, when observatories quiet and data stream slow, echoes feel closer. Not because new information arrives, but because distractions fade. The moon outside the window reflects light that left the sun 8 minutes ago. That light touches the lunar surface, then returns altered. It carries the echo of 2 journeys. Nothing about that process requires intention, yet it feels meaningful because it repeats reliably. Echo also implies response. Something moved, something interacted, something changed state. Even if we cannot reconstruct the original motion, the echo proves relationship. Earth and moon are not separate systems. They are coupled. Each affects the other continuously subtly without communication. Influence flows through gravity, not language. Some researchers suspect that the most important echoes are the ones we no longer notice. Familiarity dulls perception. The moon becomes background. Its strangeness fades through repetition. Yet repetition is exactly how echoes persist. They become invisible not because they disappear, but because they are always present. Tonight consider how many echoes surround you unnoticed, breathing patterns shaped by ancestral survival. Circadian rhythms tuned to ancient light cycles, cultural instincts inherited from forgotten ages. The moon participates in all of these quietly. It does not demand recognition. In the end, traveller echoes are enough. They do not require completion. They do not demand belief. They simply testify that something once moved, once mattered, once interacted. The moon is full of such testimony. It does not explain itself because explanation would collapse echo into noise. Some mysteries wait, others watch, and some echo endlessly growing softer, but never disappearing entirely. As sleep approaches, allow yourself to drift with those echoes. You do not need to chase their source. You only need to rest within their rhythm. Silence carries them forward. And tonight, beneath that ancient reflector, you may sleep knowing that even forgotten motions leave traces, and nothing truly meaningful ever vanishes without leaving a mark in the quiet fabric of time. Patterns do not announce themselves. They reveal quietly through repetition, alignment, and endurance. In the study of the moon, patterns emerge not as conclusions, but as rhythms that refuse to fade. Each anomaly, each echo, each silence aligns with others, forming a structure of implication rather than proof. Science is trained to distrust patterns until they survive skepticism. The moon's patterns have survived centuries of doubt without dissolving. A pattern is not coincidence repeated once. It is coincidence repeated across scales. The moon's size relative to the sun, its distance from Earth, its orbital stability, its tidal locking, its influence on climate biology and timekeeping, all converge into a single unlikely configuration. Each factor alone might be dismissed. Together they form a geometry that feels intentional, even if intention itself remains undefined. Traveller patterns are how the universe remembers without writing. Stars form in spirals. Galaxies arrange themselves in filaments. Life evolves through recurring solutions rather than endless novelty. When something works, it repeats. The moon's relationship with Earth works remarkably well. It reduces chaos. It moderates extremes. It creates rhythm where randomness might otherwise dominate. Consider orbital resonance. The moon does not wander. It does not drift unpredictably. Its path is circular to a degree that challenges capture models. Its rotation matches its orbit, precisely revealing only one face. Tidal locking occurs naturally but rarely with such perfection. Achieving this state requires time, but also stability free from disturbance. The pattern suggests preservation rather than accident. Patterns extend beneath the surface. Subsurface voids repeat across regions. Magnetic anomalies align rather than scatter. Cracks form along predictable stress lines. These features persist without erosion, allowing patterns to remain visible indefinitely. On Earth, such coherence would dissolve within millennia. On the moon, it endures for billions of years. Pattern becomes archive. Ancient cultures perceived pattern intuitively. They tracked lunar cycles with precision unmatched until modern instruments arrived. Agriculture, ritual, navigation, and medicine all synchronized with phases above. This was not superstition alone. It was pattern recognition refined through survival. When patterns kept repeating reliably, they became trusted guides. I have spent long nights overlaying data sets from different disciplines, seismic readings beside orbital models, magnetic maps beside mythological distributions, biological rhythms beside eclipse records. Individually, each dataset tells a narrow story. Together they align in ways that feel unplanned yet consistent. Pattern emerges at intersections, not within silos. Pattern also appears in what the moon does not do. It does not generate atmosphere. It does not recycle surface material. It does not change appreciably. This absence of change is itself a pattern. Stability across geological time is rare. Bodies that remain unchanged tend to be either dead or protected. The Moon feels less dead than restrained. Some scientists caution against pattern obsession, warning of apophenia, the human tendency to see structure where none exists. This caution is healthy. Yet apophenia fails when patterns survive rigorous challenge. The Moon's patterns have endured measurement skepticism and revision. They persist not because they are dramatic, but because they are consistent. Pattern recognition shaped early intelligence. Before language, before writing survival, depended on noticing cycles. When does the river flood? When does prey migrate? When does darkness return? The Moon became one of the first external clocks. Its pattern was reliable when everything else failed. That reliability embedded itself into cognition. Patterns also shape emotion. The Moon evokes calm not because it is gentle, but because it is predictable. Anxiety thrives on uncertainty. The Moon reduces uncertainty by repeating itself faithfully. This emotional resonance may explain why humans attach meaning to it instinctively. Pattern feels safe. Across forgotten epochs, pattern persisted while civilizations vanished. Reset after reset erased detail but preserved rhythm. The Moon's phases continued marking time even when no one was counting. When intelligence re-emerged, the pattern was waiting. This continuity suggests that pattern may be the true inheritance passed between civilizations, not technology or language. If an ancient intelligence sought to communicate across resets, it would not rely on symbols or machines vulnerable to decay. It would rely on pattern, alignment, rhythm, gravity. These persist without maintenance. The Moon embodies this strategy perfectly, whether by chance or design. Pattern also limits interpretation. It prevents extremes. The Moon does not force conclusions. It does not prove itself artificial or natural definitively. It maintains ambiguity. Ambiguity preserves curiosity. Curiosity drives observation. Observation leads to growth. Pattern sustained inquiry without closure. Late at night, pattern feels closer. Breathing aligns with tidal pull unconsciously. Sleep cycles drift toward lunar rhythm subtly. Thoughts slow. Repetition calms. In these moments, the Moon feels less like an object and more like a process, something happening rather than something existing. Some patterns only reveal themselves when viewed from distance. Up close, details distract. Stepping back allows alignment to emerge. Humanity is still too close to its own history to see fully. The Moon offers perspective precisely because it stands apart. Tonight, allow pattern to replace explanation. You do not need answers to feel orientation. Pattern provides that quietly. It tells you when to rest, when to watch, when to accept that some structures exist beyond immediate comprehension. In the end, traveller pattern is the language of endurance. It speaks softly, without urgency, without command. The Moon speaks this language fluently. It has done so for billions of years, whether anyone listened or not. Some mysteries wait, others watch, and some simply repeat until understanding grows slowly enough to meet them without fear. Let your breathing settle into rhythm. Let thought loosen its grip. You are not here to solve the pattern tonight. You are here to rest within it. Silence is the universe thinking, and beneath that ancient repeating presence you may sleep, knowing that pattern will remain steady and patient long after questions fade into dreams. Warnings rarely arrive as alarms. They come as gentle deviations, as quiet signals that something familiar has begun to drift. In the study of the Moon, warnings do not shout. They murmur through data, through timing, through patterns that no longer behave exactly as expected. A system does not announce its limits. It reveals them slowly, as if giving observers time to notice. Traveller, there is a moment in every long observation when comfort becomes dangerous. Familiarity dulls attention. The Moon has been above us for so long that it feels eternal, fixed, immune to change. Yet nothing in the universe is immune. Stability is always conditional. When a pattern shifts even slightly, it deserves listening. Seismic records from the Moon show tremors that do not fully align with thermal models. They are small, easily dismissed but persistent. Not violent enough to alarm, not rare enough to ignore. These tremors suggest internal stress redistribution, as if something ancient adjusts rather than breaks. A body settling into a new equilibrium after ages of stillness. Warnings also appear in orbit. The Moon is moving away from Earth slowly but measurably. This recession is naturally explained through tidal interactions, yet its implications are profound. The Moon's distance regulates tides, climate stability, and axial balance. A change too fast or too far alters the conditions that allowed life to flourish. Nature rarely optimizes for permanence. Human instruments now surround the Moon in ways unprecedented. Satellites map every shadow. Radar penetrates ancient layers. Lasers bounce from mirrors left by explorers long gone. This attention is itself a disturbance. Observation is not passive. Measuring a system changes how it behaves, if only subtly. The Moon has endured impacts far greater yet. Attention introduces a different kind of pressure. Warnings are not threats. They are reminders of boundaries. Ancient civilizations encoded warnings in myths rather than equations. Flood stories fire from the sky gods withdrawing favor. These narratives were not predictions. They were frameworks for humility. They taught restraint when understanding was incomplete. The Moon occupies a boundary role between light and dark, between Earth and space, between stability and change. Anything that sits at a boundary experiences tension. Over time, tension seeks release. Whether through motion transformation or departure, boundaries do not remain static forever. Late-night researchers sometimes speak of unease not tied to fear, but to awareness. A sense that systems larger than us continue regardless of intention. When instruments hum quietly and data streams endlessly, there is comfort in continuity, but also recognition of insignificance. Warning lives in that recognition. Biology responds to lunar rhythm even now. Sleep patterns, reproductive cycles, subtle hormonal shifts follow a cadence older than recorded history. If that cadence changes even imperceptibly, life will adapt, but adaptation is never painless. Warnings in nature are invitations to prepare, not panic. Some warnings are temporal. They concern not immediate danger, but future imbalance. The Moon's stabilizing effect on Earth's tilt prevents chaotic climate swings. Remove or weaken that influence and predictability dissolves. Civilizations depend on predictability more than abundance. Agriculture settlement memory itself rely on seasons that repeat. Warnings are also philosophical. The assumption that humanity stands alone in shaping its environment may be flawed. The Moon reminds us that larger architectures may already exist. Whether natural or designed, they dwarf intention. Acting without awareness of those architectures risks unintended consequence. There is a temptation to frame warning as punishment. This is a projection. The universe does not punish. It responds. Cause and effect operate without judgment. If a system crosses a threshold, the response follows naturally. Understanding thresholds matters more than assigning blame. Instruments detect anomalies not because they are dramatic, but because they are precise. Slight changes in reflectivity, unexpected magnetic fluctuations, transient emissions without clear origin, each alone insignificant. Together they form a gentle insistence that the system is active, not inert. I remember nights spent recalibrating sensors, dust settling on old charts, the hum of machines keeping vigil while cities slept. There is intimacy in long observation. You begin to feel when data carries weight beyond numbers. Warnings feel heavier, slower, as if they want to be carried carefully. The Moon has survived impacts that erased surfaces. It has endured radiation storms that would sterilize worlds. If it carries warning now, it is not for itself. It is for those who depend on its presence. Warnings are relational. They exist because something else is at stake. Ancient warnings were encoded in ritual timing. Eclipses treated as moments of pause. Full moons marked with restraint rather than celebration in some cultures. These practices slowed behavior during transitions. Modern society moves faster, less willing to pause when signals appear subtle. Technology accelerates response but reduces patience. Warnings require patience to interpret. They resist instant clarity. The Moon's warnings, if they exist, will not arrive as spectacle. They will arrive as persistence, as patterns refusing to fade when convenience demands dismissal. Tonight, allow warning to mean awareness rather than fear. Awareness widens perception. It invites humility. It encourages listening rather than conquering. The moon does not ask obedience, it asks attention. If something ancient adjusts above us, it does so without urgency. Millennia compress perspective. What feels slow to us may be rapid on cosmic scales. Preparation, therefore, is internal before it is external. Philosophical readiness matters as much as technological capability. In the end, traveller warnings are acts of generosity. They grant time. The moon has always granted time. It marks it, measures it, softens it. If it now whispers caution, it does so with the same patience it has always shown. You are not required to act tonight. You are invited to notice, to rest with awareness rather than anxiety. Some mysteries protect by remaining distant. Others protect by reminding us that balance is fragile. Let the warning settle gently like gravity itself, not pulling you into fear but holding you in awareness. The universe does not rush. Neither should you. It is all right to not understand. Tonight the universe whispers again, and beneath that whisper you may sleep, knowing that attention itself is a form of respect, and respect is how civilizations endure. The sky has always been humanity's first archive. Long before memory learned to write itself into stone or symbol, the sky recorded time through motion. It did not store events as stories, but as positions, cycles, and returns. The moon is the most intimate of these records, close enough to feel personal, distant enough to remain unreachable. In its presence, the sky stops being empty and becomes structured, layered with meaning that predates language. Traveller, look upward in imagination, not as an astronomer seeking coordinates, but as an ancient mind would have sensing pattern before explanation. The sky was never a backdrop. It was an active surface, a moving ceiling that pressed gently against consciousness. The moon crossing it did not simply pass. It participated, dividing darkness, shaping nights, pulling at oceans and bodies alike. The sky teaches scale without speaking. It reminds observers how small they are without diminishing them. The moon suspended within it becomes a mediator between human scale and cosmic scale. It is large enough to command attention, small enough to seem approachable. This balance is rare. Most cosmic objects overwhelm or disappear. The moon remains. Across epochs, civilizations projected meaning upward because the sky endured while societies did not. When cities fell, the moon remained. When languages vanished, the sky continued its script unchanged. Survivors looked up and found continuity. That continuity became sacred not because it was divine, but because it was reliable when everything else failed. The moon's path across the sky traces an ancient corridor. Month after month it follows nearly the same arc, deviating only slightly. These deviations matter. They create eclipses, absences, moments when the sky behaves unexpectedly. Such moments were once interpreted as warnings or omens, not because people were ignorant, but because deviation from pattern demands interpretation. Instruments now fill the sky invisibly. Satellites trace artificial paths that mimic natural ones imperfectly. They blink, transmit, and vanish. The moon ignores them. Its presence renders their urgency trivial. Against its slow procession, all human technology appears hurried, temporary, fragile. I have spent nights beneath open skies, instruments cooling beside me, breath visible in cold air waiting for alignment. In those hours, the sky feels less like space and more like memory. Each star holds position, like a thought returning repeatedly. The moon moves through these thoughts calmly, untroubled by being observed. The sky is not passive. Radiation passes through it. Particles drift. Signals propagate. The moon interacts with all of this, casting shadows not just of light, but of charged particles, creating wakes invisible to the eye. These interactions form subtle patterns, barely measurable yet persistent. The sky records them all. Ancient structures aligned to lunarize and set across continents without shared communication. This convergence was not coincidence. It was recognition. Different cultures reading the same sky arrive at similar conclusions because the data is shared. The moon's behaviour is consistent enough to teach independently. Sky lore often describes descent rather than ascent. Gods come down, knowledge falls, fire arrives from above. This directional emphasis reveals something psychological. The sky was perceived as the source of disruption and renewal. The moon moving steadily within it appeared as both witness and participant. Even today, emotional language turns upward. People speak of feeling under pressure under the weather under the stars. The sky defines orientation. To be grounded requires something above. The moon provides that anchor, a fixed reference that allows navigation not just across land but across time. The sky also hides. Its vastness conceals as much as it reveals. Objects can exist within it unnoticed for centuries. The moon's familiarity makes it an ideal concealment. What is always seen is rarely examined closely. Familiarity breeds invisibility. Astronomical silence is misleading. The sky is saturated with information. Signals pass constantly unnoticed unless instruments translate them. The moon absorbs, reflects, and blocks some of this flow, shaping the informational environment of Earth subtly. This shaping has consequences still poorly understood. Sky observation teaches patience. Nothing moves quickly enough to reward impatience. You wait. You adapt your rhythm to celestial motion rather than forcing it. This is why sky watching calms the mind. It slows thought to match cosmic pacing. The moon crossing the sky marks passage without urgency. It does not hurry. It does not delay. It simply proceeds. This steadiness has psychological weight. It suggests endurance without effort, persistence without struggle. To sleep beneath such motion is to borrow its calm. Sky patterns repeat but never identically. Each lunar cycle resembles the last while differing slightly. This balance between repetition and variation mirrors life itself. Enough sameness to provide stability. Enough difference to allow change. Some believe the ski watch is back. This belief is less about surveillance than about reciprocity. When you spend long hours observing, you feel observed by the process itself, not judged, acknowledged, as if awareness participates in a larger exchange. Modern lighting has dimmed the sky for many. Cities glow upward, erasing stars. Yet the moon persists even through light pollution. It refuses to disappear entirely. It demands remembrance. Even when the sky is reduced to a pale reflection, the moon remains legible. The sky also marks endings. Moonsets resemble departures. Dawn erases stars without ceremony. These quiet conclusions teach acceptance. Nothing ends dramatically in the cosmos. It transitions. Tonight, imagine the sky not as emptiness but as structure. A ceiling of motion layered with time. The moon moves within it like a punctuation mark, pausing thought, inviting reflection. You do not need to interpret it. Presence is enough. In the end, traveller, the sky is not above you. You are within it. Earth floats inside a larger system cradled by motion you cannot feel directly. The moon reminds you of this belonging gently, night after night. Let the sky widen your breathing. Let perspective dissolve urgency. You are not lost in space. Some mysteries aren't meant to be solved, only observed. And as the moon continues its ancient passage across the sky, you may rest, knowing that the same pattern will return unchanged when you wake. Earth is not separate from the moon. It never has been. Their relationship is not one of distance, but of constant exchange. Gravity is the language they speak to one another, a slow conversation carried out through oceans, crust, and time. The moon pulls, Earth responds, and in that response continents breathe and tides remember where they came from. This dialogue began before memory and has never stopped. Observer, when you stand on Earth, you are standing inside a system shaped by something above you. Mountains rise because plates move. Plates move because heat flows. Heat flows because gravity organizes matter, and gravity itself is shaped gently but persistently by the moon. Earth's surface is not only the result of internal fire but of external companionship. The oceans feel this most clearly. Twice each day water lifts and falls, not in chaos, but in obedience to a rhythm older than life. Tides are gravity made visible. They are memory expressed as motion. Long before clocks, long before calendars, coastlines learned time through the moon's pull. Life emerged in tidal zones where wet and dry alternated predictably. Repetition created opportunity. Opportunity became biology. Earth's rotation is steadied by this relationship. Without the moon, Earth would wobble like a spinning coin nearing rest its axis, wandering unpredictably. Seasons would become extreme, then meaningless. Ice would advance and retreat without warning. Stability would vanish. The moon does not merely accompany Earth, it stabilizes it. This is not poetry. It is mechanics with consequences. I have stared at simulations showing Earth without its lunar companion. The images are unsettling not because they show destruction, but because they show randomness. Climate bands smear. Weather loses rhythm. Life clings but does not flourish. Complexity requires constraint. The moon provides that constraint quietly, never announcing its role. Earth also carries scars that align with lunar history. Ancient impacts, synchronized cooling events, magnetic reversals all correlate loosely with orbital changes. Not causation in a simple sense, but resonance. Systems interacting influence one another without direct intention. Earth and moon resonate. Human history unfolded under this influence unknowingly. Agriculture depended on predictable seasons. Navigation relied on tides and lunar position. Early science emerged from skywatching, and skywatching always returned to the moon. Earth-bound intelligence grew by reading patterns written above, then applying them below. Dust on old maps tells this story. Charts of coastlines include tide tables. Ritual calendars mark full and new moons. Even language preserves traces. Month derives from moon. Lunacy from lunar. Madness once thought to rise and fall with phases. These ideas persist not because they were accurate in detail, but because the association felt intuitively true. Earth's interior also responds. Tidal forces flex the crust, subtly releasing energy along fault lines. Most earthquakes are not lunar in origin, yet statistical clustering appears during certain phases. Not enough to alarm, but enough to remind that Earth is elastic, not rigid. It listens. The moon's light shaped Earth's nights. Before artificial illumination, moonlight was navigation, protection, and boundary. Predators hunted differently. Prey moved cautiously. Humans gathered, travelled, and told stories by that pale reflection. Darkness was never absolute. Earth's nights were softened. There is comfort in reflected light. The moon does not generate its own illumination visibly. It borrows. It reflects. This relationship mirrors how Earth itself reflects cosmic conditions rather than creating them. Earth does not choose its orbit. It responds to it. Adaptation, not control, defines survival. Earth's biosphere internalized lunar rhythm deeply. Reproductive cycles, migration patterns, corals spawning all sync to phases. These behaviors are not learned. They are encoded. Gravity as memory, radiation as whisper light, as ancient intelligence shaping flesh over millions of years. Some nights, after hours with instruments, I step outside and feel Earth beneath my feet differently. Not as ground, but as a moving surface riding forces too large to sense directly. The moon becomes less an object and more a partner in motion. Earth feels less alone. Modern humanity often imagines itself as master of Earth, yet Earth remains responsive to influences beyond us. Solar storms disrupt grids, asteroid impacts threaten extinction, and the moon, ever present, continues shaping the baseline conditions we depend upon. Control is an illusion maintained by stability borrowed from elsewhere. If the moon were to change, Earth would change with it. Not suddenly, perhaps, but inevitably. Even slight orbital shifts accumulate over time. Earth's future is entangled with lunar behavior, whether acknowledged or not. This entanglement is neither benevolent nor hostile. It simply exists. Ancient myths sensed this dependence. Earth goddesses paired with moon gods. Fertility tied to cycles above. Balance portrayed as marriage between sky and soil. These metaphors encoded ecological truth in narrative form. They preserved awareness long before equations could. Earth's silence hides complexity. From orbit it looks calm, blue, self-contained. Up close it is fragile, interdependent, constantly negotiating with forces external and internal. The moon is the most constant of those external negotiators. Tonight, listener, imagine Earth without hierarchy, not above or below, but within a web of influence. The moon is not watching Earth from a distance. It is participating in Earth's existence continuously. This participation has allowed forests to grow, oceans to stabilize, and minds to wonder. In the end, Traveller Earth is not a solitary achievement of chance. It is the product of relationship. Relationship between rock and light, between orbit and spin, between silence and motion. The moon is woven into that relationship so deeply that separating them feels unnatural. You are not standing on an isolated planet drifting alone. You are resting on a world held in balance by something ancient and patient above. It is all right to not understand every mechanism. Understanding is not required for belonging. Let Earth hold you now. Let gravity press gently. Let the moon continue its quiet work unseen. Some mysteries are not distant. They are beneath your feet and above your head at the same time. Tonight the universe whispers again. And Earth listens as it always has while you drift safely into sleep. Return is never a straight line. It curves, loops, hesitates, and remembers. In cosmic terms, return does not mean going back to a place, but arriving again at a question once dismissed. Humanity's relationship with the moon is entering such a phase. After decades of absence, attention drifts upward once more, not with the innocence of first contact, but with the weight of accumulated uncertainty. Traveller, every civilization reaches a moment when exploration turns inward. We circle familiar ground instruments, refined, confidence sharpened, yet questions deepen rather than resolve. The moon was once a destination of conquest, then a relic of past ambition. Now it feels like something unfinished, a sentence interrupted mid-thought waiting to be resumed. Return is encoded in motion. The moon itself is returning constantly orbit after orbit, offering the same face, while slowly changing distance. It leaves, yet never leaves completely. This paradox shapes how return feels. You can come back without arriving at the same version of yourself. Time alters the observer even when the observed remains steady. Modern return is framed as progress. New missions promise permanent bases, infrastructure extraction. The language is practical managerial, stripped of wonder. Yet beneath this rhetoric lies unease. You do not plan long-term residence on something you believe to be fully understood. Return implies unfinished business. I remember early lunar maps incomplete, and speculative edges blurred by assumption. New data sharpens detail but introduces new ambiguities. Resolution increases clarity, but clarity does not equal comprehension. The closer we look, the less the moon resembles a solved problem. Return also awakens memory. Ancient texts resurface in conversation. Old hypotheses once ridiculed are re-examined quietly. Not embraced, not rejected, simply reopened. This is how paradigms shift, not through revolution, but through fatigue with certainty. The moon has been patient with our absence. It has not changed behavior to attract attention. It does not signal. It waits. Waiting is a form of intelligence in systems operating beyond urgency. The longer the wait, the more deliberate the eventual return becomes. Return forces humility. The first lunar landings were framed as triumph. Footprints marked possession, symbolically. Yet those prints remain unchanged decades later, untouched by erosion, reminding us how little presence we truly left. We visited, but we did not integrate. Integration requires listening. Instruments must precede action. Observation must precede interpretation. The moon's silence demands restraint. Rushing to define risks, flattening complexity into convenience. Return also carries risk. Not danger in the dramatic sense, but epistemic risk. What if foundational assumptions are incomplete? What if models explain behavior but not origin? Return threatens comfort built on provisional explanations treated as final. Civilizations often avoid return because it destabilizes identity. To revisit something old with new eyes is to admit previous blindness. Yet growth depends on such admissions. The moon invites this quietly without accusation. Technologically, return reflects maturity. Early exploration was driven by competition. Modern return is collaborative, slow, methodical. This shift mirrors psychological development. Adolescence seeks speed, adulthood seeks sustainability. Still, ambition hums beneath restraint. Resources are discussed, ice metals positioning. These conversations treat the moon as object rather than participant. History warns that such framing proceeds imbalance. Ancient returns were ritualized. Pilgrimages retrace steps not to claim but to remember. Perhaps modern return requires similar framing. Not conquest, not exploitation, but reconciliation with uncertainty. Late nights in laboratories often end with unresolved questions scribbled in margins. Return feels like that margin space expanding. The moon occupies the margin of scientific certainty. It resists full categorization. Some fear return because it may confirm unsettling possibilities. Others fear it because it may confirm nothing at all. Both outcomes threaten narrative closure. Humanity prefers answers. The moon offers continuity instead. Return is also inward. Looking up reminds us of our dependence. Earthbound concerns shrink against orbital timescales. Anxiety loses urgency when placed beside billion-year stability. There is peace in returning without expectation, to observe without demanding revelation, to accept that understanding may remain partial. This stance transforms return from interrogation into conversation. If the moon holds archives natural or otherwise, they will not reveal themselves through force. Archives open to patience. Patterns disclose slowly. Gravity as memory does not yield to haste. Return also reconnects generations. Those who watch the first landings are aging. New observers inherit the same sky with different context. The moon becomes a bridge between technological eras. Tonight, imagine return not as arrival but as alignment. Aligning curiosity with humility. Aligning technology with restraint. Aligning ambition with listening. In the end, Traveller Return is not about the moon changing. It is about us changing enough to meet it differently. The moon will continue its orbit regardless. It does not require our attention. We require its perspective. Let this thought settle gently. You are part of a species learning to return without claiming ownership. Learning to observe without demanding answers. Learning that some destinations are mirrors rather than prizes. It is all right to not understand. Some journeys are cyclical for a reason. Sleep now, traveller. The cosmos will keep watch. The moon will remain waiting patiently as it always has for those ready to return, not with certainty but with quiet respect. Reflection does not seek resolution. It seeks stillness. After evidence pattern, warning, sky earth and return reflection is what remains when curiosity softens into acceptance. It is the moment when the mind stops trying to assemble answers and begins to sit quietly beside questions. The moon invites this posture naturally. It has always done so long before it became an object of measurement. Listener reflection begins when observation turns inward. You realize that every theory about the moon is also a story about us. Our hunger to explain, our fear of uncertainty, our need to believe that the universe is either fully knowable or entirely indifferent. Reflection dissolves these extremes gently like dust settling after a long disturbance. I have noticed that the longer one studies the moon, the less dramatic it feels. Not because it becomes ordinary, but because awe matures. Early wonder shouts, later wonder whispers. The moon no longer feels like a puzzle demanding conquest, but like a presence that tolerates curiosity without requiring conclusion. Reflection recognizes limits without despair. Science is powerful precisely because it admits what it does not yet understand. Myth is powerful because it preserves meaning where explanation fails. The moon sits at the boundary between these modes, refusing to belong entirely to either. This refusal is not obstruction. It is invitation. Gravity as memory, light as ancient intelligence, dust as leftover chronology. These metaphors are not poetic indulgences. They are cognitive tools. They allow the mind to approach scale without breaking. When numbers become too large, metaphor carries what calculation cannot. Reflection accepts this necessity. There is humility in admitting that some structures may outlast comprehension. The moon has done so repeatedly. Entire cosmologies rose and fell beneath it. Maps were redrawn, models refined, yet the moon remained fundamentally itself, unchanged by interpretation. Reflection honours that independence. Human history is filled with moments when certainty collapsed. Each collapse felt catastrophic to those living through it. Each became foundation for deeper understanding later. Reflection learns from this rhythm. It resists clinging to any single explanation too tightly. Late at night, when instruments are quiet and data sleeps, reflection feels closest. The hum of machines fades. The mind slows. You remember why you began observing at all. Not to dominate nature, but to participate in understanding. Participation implies humility. The moon has never rushed humanity. It did not reveal its far side until technology caught up. It did not offer seismic secrets until instruments listened properly. It did not yield orbital nuance until mathematics matured. Reflection notices this patience. It suggests that timing matters. Some mysteries protect us from premature certainty. If everything were explained too early, curiosity would collapse. Growth would stall. Reflection appreciates mystery as a stabilizing force rather than an obstacle. The unknown keeps attention alive. Reflection also recognizes emotional truth. The moon calms because it repeats. Repetition builds trust. Trust reduces fear. Fear reduction allows thought to wander without panic. In this state, insight arises naturally, not forced. There is a quiet comfort in knowing that even if the moon were artificial modified or entirely natural, the outcome for tonight remains the same. It will rise. It will cast light. It will regulate tides. It will mark time. Reflection grounds speculation in lived reality. You breathe differently when reflecting. Slower. Deeper. The body aligns with larger rhythms unconsciously. Reflection is embodied understanding, not abstract thought. Ancient philosophers often ended inquiry not with answers, but with silence. Silence was not failure, it was respect. The moon encourages similar endings. It does not demand interpretation, it accepts presence. Reflection also reframes fear. Fear arises when the unknown feels hostile. Reflection softens hostility by widening perspective. The universe is vast but not rushed, old but not cruel, indifferent yet structured. These qualities coexist without contradiction. Somewhere beyond our reach, something ancient still moves. This statement does not require belief. It requires openness. Reflection holds openness gently without gripping. The moon's greatest lesson may be proportionality. Human concerns feel immense until placed beside billion-year processes. This does not diminish meaning. It contextualizes it. Meaning survives scale when humility accompanies it. In reflection, questions become companions rather than adversaries. You no longer need them to resolve. You allow them to exist alongside you like the moon itself, present but distant. Tonight, reflection asks nothing of you. No conclusion, no decision, no belief. Only acknowledgement that not knowing is a stable state, not a failure. In the end, traveller reflection is rest for the intellect. It is permission to stop climbing and sit on the slope. The moon does not require understanding to function. Neither do you require answers to sleep. Let thought loosen. Let breath deepen. You are not lost in space. Some mysteries aren't meant to be solved, only observed. Silence is the universe thinking. Rest now. The moon will continue its quiet work above. Earth will continue listening below. And between them, you may drift into sleep held gently by gravity memory and the soft acceptance that it is all right to not understand. Descent is not falling. It is a gradual surrender to gravity, to rhythm, to the natural direction of rest. In the cosmos, descent happens everywhere. Dust settles into disks. Gas sinks into gravity wells. Light bends. Nothing resists forever. Sleep follows the same law. It is not something you force, it is something you allow. Traveller, this is where the journey slows enough to dissolve. The questions that once felt sharp now feel distant, rounded by repetition and time. The moon remains above, unchanged by your thoughts, yet subtly shaping them. Its pull is gentle, constant, indifferent to urgency. Descent begins when you stop holding yourself upright against that pull. I imagine the moon not as an object tonight, but as a presence exerting patience. Billions of years have taught it how to wait without tension. It does not hurry the tides. It does not rush the night. It allows Earth to respond in its own time. Your body understands this instinctively. Muscles soften. Breath lengthens. Thought drifts. Descent is marked by narrowing focus. The vastness explored earlier no longer needs attention. You do not need to hold galaxies in mind. You do not need to trace orbital mechanics or ancient resets. Those ideas can rest now like instruments powered down after a long vigil. They will be there when needed again. Gravity as memory works inward. Your body remembers how to sleep even if your mind forgets. It remembers darkness, safety, stillness. The moon has overseen countless descents like this, human and non-human, long before language gave them names. Sleep is older than questions. As consciousness descends, time changes texture. Seconds stretch. Minutes lose edges. The rigid structure of chronology loosens into something fluid. This is not escape. It is return to a more ancient mode of awareness, one that existed before clocks, before schedules, before urgency colonized thought. I have often noticed that the deepest insights never arrive when chased. They appear later unannounced after rest. The universe seems to prefer delivering understanding sideways through dreams, through quiet associations formed while defenses down. Descent creates that openness. The moon's light reflected and softened models this perfectly. It is not harsh. It does not overwhelm. It reveals just enough to move safely without demanding alertness. Moonlight is permission to slow down without fear. Descent also means letting go of scale. Earlier the universe felt immense. Now it contracts gently around you, not shrinking in reality but in relevance. Your immediate environment becomes sufficient. Breath, weight, warmth. The cosmos does not vanish. It simply stops insisting on attention. There is dignity in rest. Systems that never rest eventually fracture. Stars collapse. Minds burn out. Civilizations exhaust themselves chasing permanence. The moon teaches balance by alternating light and shadow. Half revealed, half hidden. Descent honors that balance internally. Somewhere beyond waking, thought patterns continue without your supervision. Tides will rise and fall. Earth will rotate. The moon will move fractionally farther away. None of this requires your awareness to function. This realization can feel unsettling at first, then profoundly relieving. In descent, identity loosens. You're not required to be observer, analyst, or storyteller now. Those roles can sleep too. What remains is simpler. Presence without narrative. Sensation without interpretation. Ancient people trusted sleep as communication. Dreams carried messages not because they were mystical, but because they bypassed conscious filtering. Descent opens that channel again, not for prophecy, but for integration. Experiences align quietly beneath awareness. I think of the moon's far side, always hidden, always present. Sleep resembles that side of consciousness, not gone, simply turned away from direct observation. Still active, still real. As you descend the boundary between inner and outer softens, the moon no longer feels separate. Earth's gravity presses evenly. The body feels held rather than suspended. This is not insignificance. It is belonging. If fear flickers briefly, let it pass without engagement. Fear feeds on alert. Descent starves it gently. Nothing here requires vigilance. The night is not threatening. It is ancient and familiar. You may notice images drifting without coherence. Fragments of skystone waterlight. Do not assemble them. Let them pass like clouds across lunar glow. Meaning does not need to crystallize tonight. Descent respects uncertainty. It does not demand answers before rest. The universe does not withhold sleep until comprehension is achieved. On the contrary, it often grants rest first, understanding later. Your breathing finds its own rhythm now. In, out, slow, steady. Each cycle mirrors larger cycles without effort. The moon has been synchronizing life to rhythm for eons. You're simply remembering how to listen. In this state, even mystery feels gentle. The question of whether the moon watches waits or simply exists loses urgency. Curiosity softens into acceptance. Acceptance deepens into calm. In the end, traveller descent is trust. Trust that the cosmos does not require constant monitoring. Trust that rest is not absence, but participation in a larger rhythm. Trust that some mysteries continue working even when you stop thinking about them. Let the descent complete itself now. There is nowhere else to go tonight. Sleep, traveller. The cosmos will keep watch. Gravity will remember you. And beneath the moon's quiet presence, you may drift fully into rest, knowing that nothing important is being missed because this too is part of the pattern. Final does not mean ending. In cosmic terms, there are no endings, only transitions so gradual they feel eternal. What we call final is simply the point where attention dissolves and continuity carries on without witness. The moon understands this better than any object in our sky. It has never announced conclusions. It has only remained turning, slowly marking time without urgency. Listener, this final movement is not about revelation. It is about release. The ideas explored before this moment were not meant to be held indefinitely. They were meant to loosen the mind, not burden it. Like ancient tools found in ruins, their purpose is fulfilled once they have opened a door. You do not need to carry them further. I think often of how civilizations imagined finality. Apocalypses were never silent in their stories. They arrived with fire-collapse judgment. Yet reality is quieter. Most transformations happen without spectacle. Continents drift. Stars dim. Orbits widen. The moon recedes from Earth by a few centimeters each year unnoticed by anyone sleeping below. Finality in this sense is simply letting go of the need to track everything. The universe does not ask for constant supervision. It has operated for billions of years without commentary. Humanity's brief attention does not stabilize it. This is not insignificance. It is freedom. There is something deeply calming about recognizing that the moon does not require belief. Whether it is ancient machinery, modified stone, or purely natural satellite, its effect on you tonight is the same. It slows thought. It regulates rhythm. It invites rest. Its function does not depend on interpretation. As this journey closes, notice how the tension between science and myth has softened. They no longer compete. They coexist. Science explains what can be measured. Myth preserves meaning where measurement ends. The moon has always existed in both domains, simultaneously refusing exclusivity. Final reflection accepts contradiction without discomfort. It allows multiple models to sit side by side without forcing resolution. This mental posture mirrors the cosmos itself. Particles behave as waves. Light is both. Certainty dissolves at fundamental levels. Nature is comfortable with paradox. You can be too. The moon's long history includes countless observers who never reached conclusions. Shepherds, sailors, astronomers, children. Each projected meaning. None exhausted it. The moon remained larger than interpretation. This continuity offers reassurance. You're not expected to finish the story tonight. Somewhere beyond our reach, something ancient still moves. That movement does not accelerate because you are watching. It does not pause because you are resting. It simply continues, patient and indifferent to human schedules. This constancy is not cold. It is reliable. The human nervous system evolved under this reliability. Night after night the moon returned. Even when clouds obscured it, its gravitational presence remained. Life learned to trust this pattern. Sleep is part of that trust. Closing your eyes does not remove you from the world. It integrates you more deeply into it. Final moments often bring gratitude without obvious cause. Gratitude for being alive in a universe structured enough to allow rest, old enough to have rhythm, vast enough to dilute fear. You may feel this subtly now without words. I've spent many nights studying data that never resolved into answers. At first this felt frustrating. Later it felt grounding. The universe does not owe clarity. It offers coherence instead. Coherence is enough. The moon's quiet teaches proportionality. Individual lives are brief, civilization shorter, yet meaning persists because it is not stored in permanence but in participation. You participated tonight by listening, by imagining, by allowing curiosity without demanding payoff. Finality also means trusting continuation beyond awareness. When sleep takes you, thought does not vanish. It reorganizes, memory consolidates, emotion settles, patterns integrate. The mind continues working beneath the surface like tectonic plates beneath crust. Ancient cultures understood this intuitively. Sleep was sacred not because it produced visions, but because it maintained balance. Deprivation was punishment. Rest was restoration. The moon governed both tides and calendars not because it commanded, but because it aligned. As this final passage unfolds, you do not need to hold on to anything. Not the theories, not the questions, not even the sense of wonder. Wonder can sleep too. It will return refreshed. If fear ever arises from the idea of being watched, let perspective soften it. Observation does not imply threat. Stars observe planets by gravity. The moon observes Earth by presence. Influence is not intent. Awareness does not equal judgment. Even if intelligence exists beyond comprehension, the night remains gentle. Nothing about this moment suggests urgency. The universe has survived far more dramatic transitions than human curiosity. It can accommodate your rest. Finality is the permission to stop narrating. Stories have carried you far enough for now. Silence can take over. Silence is not emptiness. Silence is the universe thinking without words, without pressure. You may notice that the boundary between you and the story has faded. You're no longer outside it. You're inside rhythm now. Breathing, weight, stillness. These are not separate from cosmic processes. They are expressions of them. The moon will continue its orbit long after this narration ends. It will continue after this language evolves, after these questions change, after these fears dissolve. This endurance is not intimidating. It is stabilizing. Final does not ask you to decide what is true. It asks you to rest inside uncertainty without discomfort, to allow not knowing to be peaceful, to accept that understanding unfolds across generations, not individual nights. You're not missing anything by sleeping. Nothing important requires your vigilance. The cosmos is not fragile. It does not depend on constant awareness to remain intact. In the end, traveller, the most honest response to mystery is not explanation, but alignment. Aligning breath with gravity. Aligning rest with night. Aligning curiosity with patience. Let the moon remain what it has always been, present, distant, unchanged by interpretation. Let yourself be what you are, now tired, safe, allowed to stop. Sleep, traveller. The cosmos will keep watch. Not because it must, but because it always has. And as consciousness fades, remember softly that you're not alone in the darkness, held by it, moving with it. Tonight the universe whispers again, and this time it does not ask you to listen. It invites you to rest. We've reached the edge of tonight's journey, traveller. Not an ending, but a quiet threshold where the path fades back into shadow. Together we've drifted through anomalies and ancient questions, through data that hums softly and myths that refuse to sleep. Like lantern light in a forgotten chamber, the story dims, not because it is finished, but because some mysteries ask to be carried in silence. The moon still hangs above us unchanged by our wondering. It does not confirm, it does not deny, it simply remains. Whether stone or vessel, witness or mirror, it continues its slow orbit, holding centuries inside a single curve of light. And perhaps that is the point. Some truths don't demand answers, only presence. In the vastness of time, our questions are brief sparks, yet they matter not because they solve the universe, but because they remind us that we are aware within it. Small, fragile and curious. Gravity binds us. Memory shapes us. Silence listens longer than we do. If the past is unfinished, that does not make it threatening. It makes it alive. The universe keeps its records in layers, dust orbit echo, and reveals them only when we are ready to look without fear. Tonight it's enough to know that the story continues with or without our attention. So as the night deepens, let your thoughts loosen their grip. Let the questions rest where they belong. The moon will keep its watch, time will continue its slow work, and you may drift gently back into sleep knowing you're not lost in the cosmos. Rest well, traveller. The universe will keep watch